I remember when I was in high school, my Rabbi Brafman, of blessed memory, he used to explain to us how the world is starting to go mad. And at the time, we are like, okay, yeah, for sure. But I don't think really bought into it. But just the past few years, we're seeing this rise in hate, this rise in confusion, and it's sadly very validating. What's the root of this? Are people being dumb? Are people, they have an evil side to them? Like, where's this coming from?
Well, a lot of directions. I mean, first of all, let's add the caveat that the world always seems to be mad. And even periods which you might look back at and think were relatively peaceful and tranquil were filled with their own worries and alarms. And because C.S. Lewis said all crises and alarms and much more, as Lewis famously said, or, human life was always lived on the edge of a precipice. So that's not unusual, and that feeling isn't unusual. I think that having been said, there are some very deep things going on at the moment which we should confront, and it does seem that from two particular directions I would identify, things have run an awfully long way, pretty fast and very deep, which should not have been allowed to run as fast and unhindered as they have. The first is Islamic anti-Semitism, which I believe that a society like America, Britain, other countries in the West are very ignorant about. Jews included, by the way, many Jews are very ignorant about. Jews and non-Jews, we tend, ill-educated as we are on these issues and not educated enough as we always will be, we tend to understand far-right anti-Semitism. We tend to, anyone who's remotely educated will have some awareness of that, will have some awareness of historical Christian anti-Semitism. There's very little understanding in the West, principally because Islam has played really a very tiny, if not negligible part historically in the history of the West, inside our societies, that there's almost no understanding of how deep and wide Islamic anti-Semitism is. And I think that people should get themselves up to speed very fast on that, because there's no way of countering it unless you understand it. And the second thing is there's another form of anti-Semitism which is just too little understood, is much newer, and arguably therefore easier to counter, which is the form of left-wing anti-Semitism. Again, it can come from any direction, but the left-wing anti-Semitism, I think, is something that too few people understand as well, which is the worldview that really has been created only in recent decades. It's pretty new as an ideology, which is that the whole world can be divided into oppressor, oppressed, victim, victimizer, colonizer, colonized, white supremacist, anti-racist. There's a whole list of doctrines, and that in this situation, amazingly enough, miraculously enough, not miraculously to anyone who knows the history of anti-Semitism and so on, but that miraculously this system too would end up finding the Jews to be the ultimate expression of everything they hate or purport to hate or say they hate. So that the one Jewish state in the world will be the principal focus of their campaigning and so on, because Israel is, the most colonizing state, the most white supremacist state, the most capitalist state, the most genociding state, and just on and on. That list of defamations, lies, I go into, as you know, on Democracies and Death Cults, I go into a lot of the attempt to just fast pull apart of these lies. And they need to be pulled apart. But I think we also need to understand what is it that has gone wrong at a very deep level in societies like ours, that such an issue would not be an issue of interest or of study, but of campaigning, and as something like a sense of meaning in the lives of the people who engage in this. It's quite something to turn out not just week after week, but day after day. Spend your university years, instead of being educated and making friends and learning about your area of study, to live in a tent and holler about a far-off conflict about which you know nothing. We need to address the miseducation, the indoctrination that has been going on the issue of Israel and many other things, particularly, most importantly, first thing, on the issue of America and America's own legitimacy and past, which is constantly trashed in America, principally by the education system. We need to understand that, but I think we also need to address what is this lack of meaning that leads to so many people, particularly disproportionately tilting toward the young, that they would think, as it were, that their meaning in life could be found by shouting about Israel, demonstrating about Israel, supporting not just the Palestinian cause, which is one thing, but actually supporting Hamas, Hezbollah, Islamic Jihad, the Iranian revolutionary government. What is it that has made that happen? We need to not just diagnose that, we need to de-radicalize that portion of particularly youth in our countries who have found in this cause a sense of meaning in their lives.
Hey, quick break from the main video. If you're finding value in these videos and want to support the channel, I've just launched memberships here on Culture Wolf. It's a simple way to help keep these videos and conversations going, and as a member, you'll get a few exclusive extras and early access to new content. There are 2 tiers to choose from, and every bit of support means I can keep making the thoughtful videos you come here for. If you're interested, just hit the join button below, or check out the membership introduction video for all the details. Alright, let's jump back in.
Who have found in this cause a sense of meaning in their lives.
I know it's a really difficult question to answer, but practically, what could be done? Is there something that could be instituted to fight this?
Well, everything can be done and should be done. The principal thing, it seems to me, in America is education. I think that there has been a cult that has been allowed to set up in our society, a cult which has just gone unchallenged for too long. You can always tell the behavior of cults by things like disassociate from anyone in your family who doesn't agree. That's not
That's not healthy.
That's not healthy. And that's not American. It's not the Western way of doing things. If a student is told by their professors or by their contemporaries that they shouldn't have anything to do with family members who do not also think the most important thing in the world is to live in a tent and scream about something they don't know about, they would be told, you've fallen in with a really bad set, and you need to get out. But none of this is, one of the tragedies about all of this has been diagnosed for decades. And diagnosis clearly isn't enough. You've got to act on the diagnosis. And the diagnosis is obviously that this has started because of the American education system. And we've got to remember, and the British education system, this is everywhere, the Canadian education system, it's not at college level, it's from the schools upwards that you see this. I mean, I discover all the time students who have, for instance, are in their teens, who have been persuaded that they should have a view on the Israel-Palestinian question. I'm sorry. Half of kids graduating from K through 12 in New York, where we are, half of them leave school effectively illiterate and innumerate. So no, they should not be being told that they should have a view on the Israeli-Palestinian question, which is something which is a very complicated issue, about to which at the moment, until they can read and write and add up, they can add nothing. It isn't a question of, as I say, just the universities, but it is clear, and all the polling and certainly evidence I give in this book shows that The university is a considerable portion of that problem. I was in Toronto the other day, and when Charlie Kirk was killed, there was inevitably a professor at the University of Toronto, a professor of religion and politics, I think, at the University of Toronto, a lamentable woman who immediately tweeted out something along the lines of, bullets are too good for you fascist C words. I don't think, I mean, I don't even need to list the number of academics, always in things, by the way, or almost always in things with the word studies after them, which means it's not a real discipline. Scrap them, just tear them out, strip them out of the system in this country. I've lost count of the number of people who are in positions of authority in American higher education and indeed in education, who are members of a cult, and they are supporting a death cult in the case of Hamas. Now, there is inevitably, and this is going to particularly preoccupy people on the right in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination, but there will be a strong impetus to do things that de-indoctrinate, de-radicalize the people who've been radicalized in America. And there will be a very, very strong overreach, probably. I mean, I didn't think inevitably. We've seen that a little bit from Pam Bondi already. There'll be an overreach into what that looks like. And then there will be a claim by various people, particularly the political left in America, that the right is engaging in cancel culture and, doing back to the left what the left has done to the right. But this is simply not a suitable enough analysis. I think that if we had seen in the last 2 years in America the growth of a movement of people who believed in the use of violence against Black Americans, for instance, I don't think it would be hard to find a condition of unity across the political spectrum of people standing up in support of and defense of their Black brothers and sisters. I don't think that would be hard at all. I think that it's simply not the case that it's both sidesism or anything like that. People can have many, many differing views and should have many differing views, and so on. I think we're going to have to work really hard at making sure that people who've been abusing their positions in American society to effectively create activists instead of educated, useful, well-rounded people, they have to be stripped out of the institutions. We have no need of them. They've caused terrible, terrible damage. And everybody knows this, that you can't find anyone in America, I think, who believes that students leaving schools in America or in Britain or in Canada are coming out better and better educated. You can't find many people who think that every generation, that this generation just knows more and more. They should know more and more, but I don't think that's the case. I think we've massively misunderstood the difference between education and indoctrination.